Fans of the Horus Heresy, modern 28mm wargaming, and cacti, thank you very much for joining me for a how-to video on building the cactus terrain miniatures by Spectre Miniatures. Following on from my unbagging review of this model, it's had its bath, or bath, depending which part of the UK you're from, and it's now ready to assemble. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through, I'm going to take the parts off the keys, clean them up, stick them together, and then mount them on some bases I've prepared. What I'll do is, as I work through this, I've got a nice long list of chat topics to speak to you about as we're going along. So I've got two cacti to build. I've got the tall thin one and the shorter stouter one. I've got a series of arms. I don't know which arm goes where, so I'm going to have to work that out. And then I've prepared two bases for these, and this is made out of 2mm thick plastic cards. So I've cut these and moved them off, filed them to shape like so, and I think these are I've just given them a little bit of random shape to break the kit up on the board rather than just having circular bases. It doesn't matter either way. That's just how I like to do it. Let's have a quick run over the tools that I'll be using, starting with snippy things first. I've got a pair of side cutters. They work really well, arguably even better on resin than they do on plastic. So I've got those for removing the parts from the keys. We've got a couple of files. So these are similar designs, they're tapering flat-sided files with a curved upper edge. I don't know if we'll need the big one, but it's out, so hey ho, let's see how we go. A couple of craft knives, one razor sharp, the silver one blunt one for smoothing off work if required. Pin vise, and the reason I've got this is I'm not going to do a lot of drilling. To give a secure fit, I'm going to drill through the base and go up into the body of the cactus to mount that. I've got this chisel, that's a 2mm and it's a hemispherical chisel. The reason I've got this is to cut out a groove on the underside of this base, which will serve as a recess point for the pin that I'm going to mount in the base, and that's to stop it rotating and to give it some length. So I've got that as well. We've got the good old Bradle spike. I just spiked myself with that hurt, but anyway, that's my own fault. No blood. And good old dusty brush. Faithful dusty brush. That's an old dusty brush size. Yes, I think that's everything. Let's make a start. Oh, almost forgot. Got some thick super glue and a can of activator, super glue activator as well, in case we need that. But let's begin. So first thing we've got to do is we need to take these off. They look pretty good. I did see a couple of bits of gunges still stuck on, so I scraped some away with my fingernails. Might take a bit more off with a knife as we go. Right, let's make a beginning. Nice and straightforward. Either way, as we go through this, I've got a little bit of a coffee thing at the moment, so my throat's a little hoarse. So if I sound hoarse at any points, that's why. So that's those two cut off. Right, let's start off by cleaning these up. I think we'll do this and then move on to the arms. Right, so discussion topics. I've got a list, a nice long list as usual. First thing to mention is, as you remember, I did a visit to the UK Games Expo on Friday last week, held at the Birmingham NEC. And while I was there, I met up with a fellow YouTuber, Joe from Green Stuff Gaming, and we did a bit of an impromptu interview. It was completely unscripted, it was not really planned. She's put the interview up on her YouTube channel, which is called Green Stuff Gaming. The interview is now up, so I'll leave a link in the description, and if you'd like to amuse yourself by listening to me waffle on, in a slightly different setting to what you usually listen to me waffling on, get a bit more maybe of an insight into how I think about my channel, please do check that out, and perhaps you might be amused by it. I'm then going to talk about upcoming content on the channel, what I'm looking to try and get done over the course of the saving next week, of which there is, as usual, there's quite a bit to do. I've got my knife here, so I'm just going to take it off. This resin is nice and easy to work with. Just the right sort of hardness, not too soft, not too hard. Definitely Goldilocks zone resin. So cut these keys away so I've got a nice smooth base. That's not going to need any sanding now. And then that will nicely contact onto the base. And there you go, you can get a feel for what we're going to get at the end of this. Okay, that one's going to definitely need a pin, so that's quite wonky. Oops. So yeah, so that's those two. I'm then going to talk about, I'm going to touch a little bit on the upcoming 8th edition, and in particular what I've ordered 8th edition, and tell you why I've ordered certain products of the initial offering and what my plans around 8th edition are, because it's a very exciting time in the hobby. And of course, 8th edition is already 40k at the moment, but I'm a Horus Heresy player, so there's the interest. Then I'm going to finish up by talking a little bit cinema again. So I do quite a bit of cinema chats on these videos, and this one is no different. I went and saw a film with the kids actually, with the Cheeselets at the weekend, which is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is not normal. I'm not a big fan of superhero films, and you know, so I'm not saying they're bad, and I know it's nothing to do with the quality of the films, it's more the style, and I've never been a big superhero person. It's just doesn't, it's not one of those things that really interests me. But Guardians, there are some, and we went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of upcoming films this summer, because there's a few really interesting science fiction and also a historical film as well. It certainly caught my interest, so I'll talk a little bit about those. So that's our chat topics. Right, before I get onto those then, let's have a look at this. So just basically seeing, do we have any mould seams to remove? These look really nice actually in terms of their overall casting. I think there's not a great deal of work to do now. As you can see, we've got a bit here, so I need to take this off. I think this might be a better knife to do it. So let's get rid of that. This might be a handy time for this chisel. I mean, these are my more recent tool purchases, and I've found them really rather handy so far. Just to be able to get into areas with shapes other than just a straight knife blade, and they're definitely worth having, and they were quite inexpensive. I think they cost about £5 a go after postage, or maybe slightly over with postage. Yeah, really good. I like those. I'm going to start by removing the mould seams from these. I'm calling them mould seams. They're not, obviously you shouldn't really have any mould seam on a resin model. I'm calling them seams because they are quite minor. Obviously anything bigger than that I would call a mould slip, but these aren't really very prominent, so hence why I'm calling them a seam as opposed to a slip. Back up to the top then of my list of chat topics, and the first thing is upcoming content for channel Leakycheese. As always, I have an enormous swimming pool of ideas floating around in my head, or perhaps my head is a swimming pool full of little lilos of ideas floating around. That's a bizarre comparison, isn't it? So I've got lots of ideas, and I can never find the time to do everything, so I kind of do it in bits, and I try to kind of touch base a bit between the different sort of themes of what I touch on the channel. So modelling, unboxings, rules and tactics, although I've not done much rules and tactics for a long time, and there's a good reason for that, and the reason for that is the whole situation around 7th going into 8th has led me to take a pause there. You know, essentially I don't want to invest a lot of time into producing content for you guys that could be rendered obsolete very quickly, so I'm kind of just I've kind of more gone to doing the bulletin videos where I've been looking at what the changes in 8th edition are compared to 7th, so that's kind of like that part of the channel at the moment. And just trying to cover off those. I mean, things like the What Made 40k series is a bit of a special case because the amount of time required to produce an episode there is enormous. Those videos are very, very time consuming to produce. I kind of, at the point now, I've done what it is. I've done Starship Troopers, so the next one is going to be the works of H.P. Lovecraft and looking at his influences on the Chaos Powers, and that's not going to be for some time yet because I've got a lot of reading to do, reading of H.P. Lovecraft stories, and I've also got some good supporting notes from a guy called T.J. Joshi, if I remember rightly, who's a bit of a scholar of Lovecraft, and I want to refer back to his because the Lovecraft episode is going to be different to the others because it's actually going to look at a whole group of stories. I will examine Lovecraft as a person in a bit more detail than I have done with Frank Herbert and Heinlein, or Robert A. Heinlein. So it is going to have a different feel to it, and that's because that's a reflection of the nature of the topic, because you can't really talk about Lovecraft by looking at one story. You've got to look at a whole host. Look at a whole host of stories, and you also have to look at the man himself to to understand something about to understand part of what his work was around. So that's kind of a slightly different feel to it. It will be in the same format. You might say the focus will be a bit different. That's done. First trunk is cleaned up. What are my videos I'm planning to do this week? These are not in order that I intend to release them. This is the overall objective list, which I hope to get done. I have a gallery video to do of my Legio Custodes Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought, a collaboration with another YouTuber. This person's very kindly painted the Achilles. I'll be doing a video to promote his channel and his painting using the Achilles. I hope you'll enjoy that. So we've spent a bit of time doing some nice sort of photos of the Dreadnought in a game setup sort of thing. I've got that coming, and I know lots of you are very interested in painting, which I suppose I better talk about as well. So yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a taster for what might be for more painting to come. I've got an out of the pack review to do for you on the Warhammer World, an event exclusive miniature of Ixion Hale, so the Legio Custodes Tribune figure. So I've got that to do. That's quite I'm excited to do that. That's a really cool miniature, very difficult to get hold of, and certainly at retail price. So I'm very enthusiastic to do that. Picked him up at the weekend. Warhammer. Last Thursday, didn't I? Yeah, slightly under a week ago. I didn't pick him up at Warhammer Fest, it was later. I've got a few reviews to do of ultramodern 28mm, so that's kind of what brought me to this. The first one is I've got another miniature by Spectre Miniatures to do, or another model by Spectre Miniatures to do, and that is the Razor British Army Scout Buggy, which is an interesting little kit. It's my mate's model, but I thought it'd be an interesting one to do, just as something a bit different on the channel. I've got that coming up, or that to do, and then I've got some other miniatures that are kind of, again, my mates, and these are some kind of like a few. I think they were actually given to him as kind of like some freebies, but there's a company called Evil Bear that also does 28mm ultramodern miniatures. So I've got a few examples of some stuff to show you there as well from that company. And these are really interesting because there's some brand new miniatures I don't think yet are at production, but they are what I will call, actually, they're not just ultramodern, they're near future, and they're based around equipment that is going to be coming into British Army service soon. And there is some actually futuristic stuff in there. It's a different sort of miniature to what I normally do. I thought it would be interesting to look at them as science fiction starting to become reality. So I've got those to do as well. So that's Evil Bear. And then the other thing I would like to get to this week is get back to talking about 8th edition rules. So 8th edition, it's leakier than I'm always skeptical about the leaks. I think Games Workshop has deliberately leaked it. And basically most of the rules are available now on the internet if you know the right place to look. I think part of it might be Games Workshop leaking it, part of it is some people have just got hold of it through various methods and have used the medium of Reddit and others to share it. So yeah, I'll come back to that. I mean, I will probably still, for the next video, I will anchor it looking at most recent, the posts I've not yet covered on the Warhammer community website, but I'll roll them into one. And then I'll move on to talking about other stuff, or the actual core rules probably. So there's, 8th edition rules preview, pre-release analysis to continue with as well. What got there? So I'm doing pretty good on these. There's a bit of, the bits to clean up are fairly kind of, there's not a lot of them, they're just sort of dotted around the length of the cactus body. You know what I'm like with model prep. If I can see a mould line that's one mould line more than I'll accept. So yeah, I'm a self-confessed perfectionist, so I can't do anything about that. As a self-confessed perfectionist, all you can do is try to work quicker. Well, there's two things you can do. You can either work quicker or get less stuff to work on. That's all you can do. You know, you can't change it. Well, me anyway, I can't change my state of mind as to what I'll accept and be happy with. So yeah, I have to work quicker. So I'm no good at buying less stuff. Right, that looks pretty neat now. So we've got 2 cactus bodies. Now we need to start looking at these arms. Now, looking at the, it seems like we've got kind of 1, 2, 3 big mounts there, and then perhaps 1, 2, 3 biggish mounts on that. So I wonder if we need some of these. We need some of these and some of these to do it. So I think we need a mixture. Right, let's get these off the sprue then and clean them up. So we're going to need, you get 12, you need all 12 if you're going to fill those. I think you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's got 5. I feel like this is like playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh no, maybe you don't need them all. Interesting. Maybe you get some extra or an alternate one. That is intriguing. It's like trying to play a, I don't know, a recorder or a flute or a bassoon or something, trying to cover those up. Alright, so we got that. Well, let's have a look at these guys. So here we've got one. Let's do a little bit of, there you go. Now I guess this is a bit where you have to mess around and try to figure out which fits where properly. There you go, did need big file after all. Sometimes force and ignorance is what you need on these things. There's no actual number indicators to say which arm goes on which cactus in which location. Does that matter? Don't know. We'll see how easy or hard these are to assemble. That feels like it might go there. Oh, perhaps there. Fits there, but you've got an enormous gap around it. Maybe you're supposed to have that. Right, so we'll check on this. A little bit of gunk there, just to... Sometimes if stuff doesn't come off, like slimy residue stuff doesn't come off when you wash it, it's easy enough to just remove with your fingernail. Interesting texture there on the end. So I've not looked at enough photos of these yet to know how accurate it is. The flowers look, the flower bits look quite authentic. Right, topic number 3. So what is it? Yes. So that's all the channel content I'm working on over this next week. So we'll see how we go with that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is 8th edition. So, and what I'm buying at release. So, of course, you know, I want to get 8th edition, the actual starter set, because I really fancy doing some Primaris Space Marines. Even if I only get a few, I like the models. I really like the Inceptor Marines. So these guys I call, basically what I call the mobile infantry. These guys are like the mobile infantry from Starship Troopers. So yeah, they're great. I'm looking forward to getting some of those. So I've ordered the box game, Dark Imperium. I'm doing a share with a mate, so my mate is going to buy the Death Guard off me because he's a bit of a Nurgle fan. He has a really quite large Heresy cum 40k Death Guard force. His Heresy era forces are quite a nasty one actually. It's got some nasty units in. It's got a battery of quad mortars, which causes no end of upset to anyone who gets fired on by them. He's going to buy those off me, so he likes those models. I'll keep the rule book and the Primaris Marines. I've also ordered Codex, or not Codex, Index Imperial 1. So this is the Adeptus Astartes. So it's got the, it has the generic, it has the generic Space Marine listing, and then it also has the things that are chapter specific. So usual offenders, Ultramarines, Blood Angels, blah 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 blah. Dark Angels, those guys. And obviously I'm not so interested in the chapter bit, but I do want that for the points values of Space Marines. I've also ordered the Imperial Armour Book 1, the Adeptus Astartes one again, which has got a lot of the Heresy era gear, although some of it is in the Relic configuration. But I've ordered that, and basically what we're going to do, me and a couple of mates, is we're going to do some, let's say, I don't know, proxying of army lists and estimating army lists from those books to allow us to play Horus Heresy games. To start with, we're not going to have the flavour of the Legion specific rules, although to be honest that's not always a bad thing, and we have played games in the past where we have abandoned the Legion rules because we didn't feel they were balanced properly for certain legions. So I play as Iron Hands, which I see as being a very competitive Legion specific rules, you know, like if you play, say, the Ultramarines or the Imperial Fists. Those are all chapters that have got some really good special rules, and the Blood Angels are broken at the moment. You know, you should not be able to get that many assault cannons. One of my mates plays as World Eaters, and I do not see in 7th edition the World Eater Legion rules being balanced against the most of the what I consider to be the competitive legions. They're just simply not. All the World Eater capabilities around melee, and to use them you actually have to get into melee, and then they burn out after a round, generally speaking. So I don't know, I just don't think it's there. The World Eaters needed a rule that allowed them to deliver the sort of ferocious close range fire support that the fluff describes them as having. I mean, World Eaters, I think they were written far too much as a melee legion, whereas in actuality they're not just a melee legion, they're a close assault legion. They're a legion who specialise in frontal attacks, and frontal attacks include utilising your armour assets and your heavy support marines as well. I feel that they should have a rule around they should have rules around intensity of combat for all of their models, not just ones in melee, and they need something like that to properly rebalance the Legion, because it's just simply not there at the moment. So I don't see having an absence of the Legion rules, certainly for playing my World Eater opponent, as being a bad thing. It might actually be a good thing. So yeah, so that's the plan. I won't have rules for quite everything. So for example, my glaive, for example, I don't think will have rules, because Games Workshop, Forge decided that they weren't going to introduce a glaive into 40k gaming, even in the Relic guys. Basically because I think it would lead to start selling boxes of tissues with Tyrannid, Guardsmen and Orc codexes because of its lethality against light infantry. Well, any infantry, the heaviest infantry, that thing evaporates. I've ordered those. I'm going to pick them up from Warhammer World on release day, which is the 17th of June, Saturday the 17th of June. So I've got that nicely planned in. Maybe if any of you guys are going to be down there, I might say hello. And secondly, I'm wondering if they might have something special on offer, whether it be Warhammer World and the release of 8th edition. We shall see. Games Workshop likes to give out these little Easter eggs for people who go to their retail locations sometimes, so who knows. Right, so these are coming along nicely. Right, so that is 8th edition, my plan. So we get the Marine stuff, do a bit of rules, tweaking, adaptation, army list massaging, and then we play Horus Heresy regardless, using 8th. I'll do some 40k games as well, to give the Primaris a little bit of a test. You know, put them through their paces, make a video to say how great they are and stuff. No, that would be trolling certain members of the YouTube community, wouldn't it? I wouldn't do that. Right, So I've got one more arm here to clean up from first sprue. If I crack on and get sprue 2 done, that's going to put us in a nice place for assembly. So yeah, that's my plan for 8th, or what I'm going to get initially, and then what I'm going to start doing gaming wise. It's going to be I'm dead excited, really excited for that. You know, I did a video maybe about a month back, and I called it Acceptable in the 80s, where I speculated that 8th edition was going to return to 1st, and everything I've seen so far basically says that. I mean, there's other stuff in there as well, but yeah, for me, so much of it is 1st edition. I mean, you could say 1st stroke 2nd edition. There's a lot of common ground between the two. 30th anniversary year of 40k, they've gone right back to their roots. Film time. So it's time for me to talk about film again. I like talking about film when I do these videos, and I like our chats in the comment sections about the film. So I went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, as I mentioned before at the start of the video, I'm not a big superhero film fan. If you want to know what do I like superhero film wise, well, I quite like some of the Superman films from the 80s. You know, I got a bit of a soft spot for those. Also grew up with them, and I really like the original Batman movie by Tim Burton, with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. That was a great film. It kind of had a dark grittiness to it, and the soundtrack by Prince, rest in peace Prince, is great. Other superhero films, but you know, that I think we watched, I watched with Mrs. Leakycheese, I watched some of the Avengers films, I think, yeah. They were pretty good, and I enjoyed those. Well, those were good. Yeah, they were worthy films. I've not seen Deadpool yet. I wish I'd seen Deadpool at the cinema. I need to see that, because that's one that broke the mould. But anyway, so Guardians of the Galaxy. So we watched the first one on video with the cheeselets. I actually really quite like these. They're quite light-hearted in a way. They kind of got the right mix of serious and silly. And they're a film, and what I actually really liked about it, and some of you are probably going to scream at me for saying this, but I actually thought they were really good films for the use of CGI effects. I don't know, they do it. They use the CGI really, really well, and in a way that it just works. They bring something visually stunning to the table with it. And I actually really enjoyed it for that. And the same thing was true of this movie. And I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It was, I didn't think too hard about it. It did get a bit heavy towards the end. It had Kurt Russell in it. Kurt Russell, oh, what a dude. He's such a good actor. Whenever I see him, I just think Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from LA, Escape from New York, Snake Plissken, yeah, even Overboard, gosh. But yeah, he's a great actor, and he was so well cast in this film. He brought some real panache to the lineup. So yeah, no, I watched that. That was great fun. I loved it. It was a lot of giggles. Even a little appearance by Sly Stallone. So what I really wanted to talk about was upcoming films this year of interest to me, which were normally the half hour of brain rot that precedes this feature film, which is called the adverts. Normally it just has me counting down the minutes until the film starts. However, in this instance, there are a couple of films with decent trailers. I actually thought, ooh, I might want to see that. I thought I'd run through these. Well, there's 2 which had trailers and 1 which didn't. So the first was the upcoming film Valerian. So I'm really excited for this. This is by Luc Besson, and it very much looks like he's revisiting the sort of film he made. He did The Fifth Element all those years back. I really like The Fifth Element. It's a great movie. Great sci-fi film, and it's just got such a wonderful visual look to it. Very, it had a really distinctive feel to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, there's 7 here. Gosh, lots of arms. So actually you get a fair bit, you get a couple of extra arms in this kit. That is good. It's nice to get options. Yeah, so Valerian. I saw another trailer for the Valerian. I think it's the same one I'd seen previously, but that looks great. I'm definitely going to go see that. I've just checked up the BBFC cinema age rating for it before doing this video, and it's actually rated at a 12. You don't get many 12s these days. So that means can't take the cheeselets. No cheeselets. Right, let's have a look at these bits. These are look a bit like I've got a bit more gunge left over to just scrape away, but that is nice and easily done. A bit more flash as well, or a bit more flash to do This is quite a flashy sprue. But yeah, Valerian looks brilliant, and it looks such a visual feast. I hope it's going to have the story to go with it. I mean, it's been a long time since The Fifth Element, and Luc Besson doesn't strike me as a sort of director to undertake these projects willy-nilly. So yeah, I'm very excited about that, and it's nice to see another what seems to be a hard sci-fi film coming along, although more fantastical than some of the other ones we've seen recently. So for example, Alien Covenant in all of its disappointing glory. I still can't make my mind up, but that's just a bugging film. I watched Comic Book Girl 19's review of Alien Covenant, and I think she's one of the best reviewers on YouTube of films full stop, but she did a great review of Alien Covenant, like she did with Prometheus. And I watched that, and I came away from it thinking, so there's actually some very clever symbolisms I didn't get because I was just annoyed by the lack of suspension of disbelief. But it kind of made this film more conflicted in my mind again as to whether or not is it good or is it rubbish. Check that review if you've not seen it and you're interested in Alien Covenant. And it shows that sometimes a religious upbringing can equip you for clever critical analysis later in life. I'll say no more. Yeah, Valerian. So I'm dead excited by that. The next film is something different, and I was quite surprised to see the trailer for this because we don't often get mainstream anime releases here in the UK. I mean, it tends to be quite a limited genre for mainstream release. It appears that we have one on the horizon, and this film is called In This Corner of the World. This has been adapted from a short TV series. It's set in Hiroshima at various points of time in the Second World War. Obviously, as you can probably imagine, it's going to deal with the ultimate fate of the city with the atomic bomb attack in 1945. But I saw it, and it had a really good visual look to it, and it looked quite thoughtful as well. I do like a bit of anime. It did make me wonder if it might be a bit of a depressing one, and if any children of certainly of the 80s, maybe of the 90s as well, you may remember the rather sad cartoon that was shown on the BBC actually, called Where the Wind Blows, and I did wonder if it might be touch on some of those themes about the reality of nuclear war, being involved in a nuclear attack. I don't quite know what to make of that yet. It might not be the easiest film to watch, but it has really intrigued me. The animation looked great, so that's one I'm keeping an eye out for. Where the Wind Blows. I can still remember watching a video at primary school when I was probably about 7 or 8 about the 4-minute warning. Gosh, how the world they don't show that to children these days, blimey. It was a complete surprise to me. I mean, I'd not heard anything about it, so that is very much on my see list now, or go see list. That's perfect, nothing to do there. In This Corner of the World, very intrigued by that. I will go see that, assuming it gets released locally, which, as they were advertising at a showcase cinema, I don't think they would advertise it if they weren't going to give it a run there. Now, the third film I was going to talk about is one that's been advertised for some time, and this is Blade Runner 2049, if I remember rightly. Should I go see Blade Runner 2049? I don't know if I should touch this one or not, because it appears to be treading on very delicate ground in terms of trying to do a sequel to a truly iconic film, and I guess what's the phrase, once bitten twice shy. What we've had with the Alien prequels, again remaking a classic Ridley Scott film, Alien, and the mixed success that's been achieved there, I'm not sure about revisiting the Blade Runner film. Now, the Blade Runner film is an interesting film. It's a good example. It's probably a bit like the recent Ghost in the Shell film, in that you can make a film based on a well-known story, franchise, whatever you want to call it, completely change it and still get a great film out of it. So in the case of Blade Runner is a film adaptation of the classic Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The film Blade Runner is not a particularly faithful adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The story in the film is being fundamentally altered, and it misses a lot of the themes that Dick was getting at with his work. It turns it into something else and explores other themes. And to be honest, it doesn't matter because it's so well, in some respects, it doesn't matter because it's so well cast and it's so amazingly visualised. I can forgive it for its deviation from the plot because it just uses a really good idea and turns it into something a bit different. I'm far from adverse to see people take classic works of fiction or film and remake them, because I mean, look at the film, look at John Carpenter's The Thing, one of the greatest science fiction films ever, and science fiction horror. That was a remake. Now, if you've seen the original Thing, which is a good film as well, I like the original Thing as well as the Carpenter's remake. I don't know, they did another one more recently which didn't bother with, because you're never going to better The Thing. The original, Carpenter's version. Maybe that's not the case, but it didn't pull me in the other one. I kind of got this feeling around this Blade Runner 2049. Was it going to be a disappointing sequel to the classic Ridley Scott film? I don't know. Seen the trailer, and so they brought Harrison Ford along, and I'm just a bit worried. I'm a bit worried that the motivation to make this film is to do another Blade Runner film while Harrison Ford is still working in the industry. And I don't know if that's a good reason to do it. I don't know if Blade Runner ever needed a sequel. Well, it didn't. Philip K. Dick's book was a self-contained story. Very neatly addressed a question that Dick had asked in a lot of his books, which was, what is it that makes us human? It didn't need a sequel to, adding a sequel doesn't... He never wrote a sequel. I don't know if Dick ever wrote sequels. Don't think he did. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that. I'm pensive. Yeah, pensive about it. And in some ways, I don't know if I want to see if it's going to be a shadow of the original. It'll just kind of be disappointing. So yeah, I don't know about that. I'm on the fence about that. That said though, we appear to be going through something of a revival period at the moment on science fiction films. We've had some good films over the last few years. Not all of them have been great, but there's been some good ones. I think probably Prometheus and Interstellar are two that have had a very big impact, and I mean, one film that's had an enormous impact, or one piece of media that did is, and has been copied again and again, it was the original trailer for Prometheus, the one that has the loud horn booming section. That has been copied again and again and again. It's almost like one of the themes from Aliens, which got copied and used again and again and again. It's like a meme in movie making. I'm ready to do that, so I'm now going to create a furrow in the underside using this chisel, which will then, let me get something. So if you can imagine, this is a piece of wire I'm going to pin it with. I'm going to bend it at a right angle. That's going to go into the furrow, and then that will make sure it doesn't rotate. That's the plan. So the challenge now is to do this without cutting myself, and these chisels are extremely sharp. If I slip and put this into my hand, there will be quite a bit of blood flow. So let's hope I don't do that, because I don't want the pain, and I'm sure you guys don't want to see the blood. And the problem is as well with stuff like this, I've cut myself loads of times doing stuff like this, but I've had a lot of cuts over years. The thing that's really annoying is they're very rarely that pain. Well, they hurt, but compared to some of the pain I've had from accidents over the years, it's not that bad. But it's a fact that you can't work as well because you've kind of got this enormous great plaster on your hand or something. There you go. That looks pretty good as a first attempt. I think that's spot on that. Right, so let's do one here. Don't know if anyone knows of any other interesting upcoming science fiction films. If you share those in the comments, because I'm always on the lookout for new sci-fi to go see at the cinema. I need something to undisappoint me this year after Alien Covenant has left a bad taste in the mouth, shall we say. I'm going to put some sand and stuff on here, obviously. A little bit of some little plastic turnings that are just standing up, so just running the knife over them to smooth them down. Let's drill a hole into the base of this cactus. I'm gonna put them on the base, and then I'm gonna mount the arms. Do it that way. That looks nice and central. That's one. Now this cactus appears to have some sort of a bend on it. I guess that's natural. To be honest, I can adjust the position later with a bit of heat bending. That's not difficult. Now let's drill it. From people who commented on my previous video where I built the Antares tank and talked about Alien Covenant, nobody came along and said, "Oh, Leakycheese, you're full of crap. Completely wrong about Alien Covenant." Kind of seems to be a fairly consistent opinion of the movie. If you step outside of the paid-for critics zone, if you move into the people who are truly independent critics of the film, there seems to be a pretty consistent view on it. Drilling these, actually, I would actually say this resin is a bit softer. Perhaps it's a touch, not a lot, but a touch softer than Forge World stuff. It's not a great deal different, but it is a touch softer. So I'm going to drill this out so that's recessed to that depth. Here's me beavering away with my little, doing it all by hand with the pin vise. I like doing these by hand though. I like the manual touch. You've been doing it all your life, you're used to it, so yeah, it doesn't really matter. Right, that's those two, so we need some wire. Right, so let's start off by putting a bend on this wire. So it needs to be about that, so I'm going to clamp it a 90 degree bend on it. Like so. Yeah, slightly over perhaps, so just straighten that back a bit. Oh, back the other way. You can just mess around with this until you get it right. That's pretty good. Let's test that for the fit. It's alright, just snip it down a little bit. Don't know if there's other ways you could do this. I guess you could use some very strong, you could use some epoxy glue and just stick it straight on the surface. But I don't think even an epoxy is going to be strong enough. There you go. And that is completely flush with the base. So now we just need to cut this to the correct length, which is basically the length of this drill bit plus a touch. So I reckon if I take that off about there to allow for the thickness of the base. You know what? Don't know where that went. Lovely. Well, okay, then it went and fell over straight away, but that is not the point, chaps and chapettes. Try again. Something like that. That's pretty good. Right, I'm all a bit fingers and thumbs at the moment, so I'm going to get this one stuck. Glue this bit in, then I'm going to cover this, add the glue on there, and then use some accelerant to set that part. That was my chat topics, I guess, for the moment. What else is there to talk about? I guess what's on the horizon from our friends at Forgy World. There's more custodians to come, I guess. There's actually some quite big stuff to come. We get the Aquilon Terminators, so the most elite Terminators of the entire Imperium are to come. And then we have the Sisters of Silence stuff. For example, we've got the Charon Pattern Acquisitor, which is a vehicle I'm certainly excited about. I think we might have a little touch of activator here. This new kind of activator's got this groovy little nozzle, which I quite like. Seems more precise than previous ones I've used. There you go. That seems pretty decent. I'm going to run some glue in here now to fill that and hopefully make it nice and secure. Right, the excess away. Give it a quick little spray. Got a different smell to it again, this activator. Must be a slightly different formulation. That's one. Let's do the second of the cactus. Oh, looks a bit messy and shot now, doesn't it? Get a bit of that out. Right. So I need a little, ouch, a little bend. That's my pin vise. So let's cut this. I might do it just a touch shallower this time. So I think I had a little bit more wire than I wanted then. So there goes the mic cable. It kept holding my wire there, and that was an improvement, wasn't it? So let's just test that for depth. I reckon we want just a touch deeper. The other one was not quite deep. I needed this hole to have been about 0.5 millimeter deeper. I pressed it in the end, so it was okay. Why settle for okay when you can have it just right? Let's look at that then. I'm going to cut this a little bit deeper. I do worry about the culture of health and safety today. And how do I get my kids to take risks on stuff like this? Well, I guess the way you do it is you give a knife to your child and say, there you go, try cut that. And, well, just as I did, sometimes you, most of the time you're okay, and every so often you have a little whoopsie and you need a plaster, and maybe, you know, once or twice you've got to go to the doctors for a stitch. But, you know, if you don't take any risk, you don't learn anything, do you? Good, so let's get that glued. Wow, that's a lot of adhesive there. So what I'll do there is first is I kind of like coat the pin with adhesive, and then I put a bit more on to actually stick the base. Just super glue's got an amazing proclivity for sticking flesh. And of course that's what it was designed to do. And I think that's pretty much what it was designed to do originally. I once heard it was adapted from a chemical used in photographic development, but I don't know if that's apocryphal or not. Does that stand okay? That seems pretty neat. Little zap of activator. There you go. So now I've got two cactuses mounted on their bases. Yeah, and if I don't say so myself, they feel pretty strong. So now we can have a little bit of fun sticking some arms on. There's one extra detail that I'm going to do, which you'll see when I come and do the final model review on these, but I'm not going to tell you that yet. I'm going to be kind of winging this. I think that feels like those two go there, so I'm not sure if I'm even constructing this in the right order, but let's just do it, shall we? Let's throw caution to the wind and say, I'm going to put this here and I'm going to put this there. I think that was was that one going there? Or was that one going there? Well, I'll tell you what, let's take the approach of wanging a load more glue in and doing both and seeing which sticks the best. I think this one was supposed to go here. Might want a little bit of bending to get a final good positioning. I don't know, I need to actually find some pictures of these real life cacti and decide if they need a bit more repositioning. I don't know if they do really, to be honest. Okay, another little squirt of activator to help this one along. Modern petrochemicals, you can't beat them. I think these may benefit from a bit of filler around these joins at some point. Right, so I need another 2 arms to finish the small but stout one, shall we call it. Oh, this cute little arm here. Looks like it might... Oh, actually, I'm going to put that one in there. Yeah, that little chunky one. As you can see, I've not bothered doing any pinning with these arms. Even by my standards, that would be a bit excessive. These are terrain there. I'm not so bothered, even once it's painted, if I get a bit of a breakage and it needs repairing. It's not going to be the end of the world. Miniatures, different matter. These guys, not so worried. If you're very keen, you could pin these on. But even I'm not that keen. Found a bit more gunk to remove there. Must have missed that. I wonder who they get to make this. This sort of gungy stuff reminds me a lot of what you get on Forge World stuff. I believe Forge will do all their manufacturing in-house. I don't think they subcontract it out, but I may be wrong. That looks like it would nicely sit there. These are all too big. That's too wide. I feel that this is the arm for that little slot, so let's stick that one on. These are good fun. These are a lot of fun, these cacti. And these are fun little kits, and having spent all the time doing the prep, they're then actually, once you get to this stage, it's dead quick just to stick them together. Oops. That wasn't what I wanted to do, was it? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting a dab of activator on these, because I'm putting a rather clumsy and globby amount of adhesive on, but that's because it needs it to get a really strong hold. But obviously, super glue is an adhesive where if you want a rapid join, you want a small amount of adhesive for the chemical physical properties to work best. But I'm kind of filling as well as gluing. That's the first one. Yeah, I like that. Very nice. We'll bob that over there. I've got that one there, possibly that one there. So let's do the lowest one first. Always good if you get your activator on target. Well, this may be slightly in a jaunty angle. Nature's wonkiness to them. Nature's wonkiness, is that even a real term? Second one. If these look good, I've already been considering buying a few more actually. Although they're a model of a real world cactus, they still look quite alien and otherworldly, and there have been a couple of interesting suggestions in the unpacking video. working out where these go. I think this one probably wants to go there. So let's do that one next. See a little bit more clean up there. Just do that. I've never actually seen this sort of cactus in the wild. I mean, I've not had the opportunity to go to the United States of America. Spent a bit of time in Australia. I saw a lot of Australia. Now, Australia, they have grass trees, or certainly in the outback, they have a lot of grass trees. They have all sorts of other trees as well, eucalyptus, etc. But yeah, grass trees. I remember when me and Mrs. Leakycheese, well, we weren't Mr. and Mrs. Leakycheese at that point. Were we? No, we were married. When did we go to? Yes, no, we were married. Yeah, we were married. Brain's going. But we did a coast-to-coast tour, so we started in Perth, went all the way over to the other side of Australia, and we kind of like did a loop around the top of the continent. So we went up the west coast, across the top, down to Alice Springs, up to Cairns, and down the east coast to Sydney. We came back to the UK ultimately from Sydney. Because we were relatively fresh out of uni, and we obviously had a bit of money because we were able to spend, we were fortunate enough to be able to spend thousands on travelling around Australia, but still had to do all that. We had to mind our budget, and one of the ways we minded our budget was, instead of flying around Australia, we used the coach service. So everything was by coach, and some of these journeys were insanely long. I mean, the longest was Alice Springs to Cairns, which was almost a full day. It was 23 hours. A lot of time on the coach, and I can remember it even quite vividly now, watching the Australian outback roll by, and just for hour after hour there was nothing but grass trees. Nothing but grass trees and scrub. It just kept going on and on and on. It was quite surreal at times. The old kangaroo. Some big eagles, wedge-tailed eagles. Those things they'll just sit in the middle of a road and they'll stare the bus out of the way when they were eating roadkill, and there was a lot of roadkill out in Oz. But yeah, those grass trees just going on for hours and hours. Well, I didn't just watch out the window for hours and hours. We read a lot of science fiction to keep those journeys going. Read the Mars series. We both read the Mars series by Kim Stanley Robinson when we were going around Australia. It was the right sort of environment to read a book like that, which a lot of it is set on the desolate planet of Mars. Certainly the early book was quite thought-provoking book. Right, last one. Yeah, that was I'll tell you, to be free, to be young and free and footless again and go travelling like that will be fun, but might be a little bit of time before we do that again. Stop waffling about my travel, but we ended up with one spare cactus limb. There we go, there's another name for it. And they're a bit big to get in shot. Let me see, if we get rid of that, let me just tidy up here. Right, so you can just about see them. They won't quite fit in shot. Got the big one and the little one, and they look great. I'll do a full model review on these and we'll be able to see them better. But yeah, really nice looking models. I'm dead pleased with those. And what have I got? Oh, I've got any models around for scaling. I've got one of my brother-in-law's Weird and Wonderful Beasties from the Twilight game. That looks quite appropriate, doesn't it? This carnivorous beast. Oh no, here we go. There you go, I've got one of my Arcadian Guard. There you go, that gives you a good idea of scale. And oh, one more gone. There's a Telemon Dreadnought. But yeah, you can imagine the Telemon striding through a field of cactus. That would look rather neat, wouldn't it? I like these. These are really nice. So yeah, I hope you found that an interesting little demo of how to assemble these. Neat little trick there with the bases and how to get a really strong, secure, firm fix. I don't think, unless I drop kick those, they shouldn't break. There you have it, cacti models by Spectre Games. Let me know what you think about these intriguing bits of gaming terrain in the comments section. I hope you've enjoyed that. Remember again what I mentioned at the start about the interview I did with Green Stuff Gaming. I'll leave a link in the description to that, so do check it out if you want to hear me waffle about the channel a bit. Other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.